If the June Metro North and Long Island Railroad Joint Committee meeting could come to order, please. Thank you. First, we have a safety briefing. Oops. Where's our safety briefing?
Over here, ma'am.
Sorry, Justin. I'm used to you over here.
That's okay. Good morning. The following are procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for PA announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell E down the hall past the elevator lobby. Notify emergency personnel if you need assistance, and AEDs are located in the main hall just past the elevators.
Thank you. And before we have our public speakers, I'd like to introduce a new board member to you, Mr. Robert Lynn, sitting next to Kevin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have any public speakers?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have 3 public speakers signed up. We ask them all to adhere to the 2-minute time limit. The first speaker is Orrin Getz, followed by Jason Pinheiro.
I just wonder if these can be given out. I just had a handout I wanted to give to you, but there's nobody here to give it to, so I'll get it to you after the meeting. Amtrak is looking to replace its dual-mode locomotives. So is Metro North. Perhaps the 2 railroads should get together and do a combined procurement. This could be the advantage of both railroads. Ray Kenny, Vice President of New Jersey Transit Rail Operations, agreed to check out the Comet 3 cars that are in storage that New Jersey Transit retired. These cars could possibly be fixed up and used by the Long Island Railroad. Metro North also has 2 Comet 3 cab cars, if you'd like to examine them and see what they're like. Also, the Long Island Railroad needs more coaches. This is a desperate problem, and I think that these Comet 3 cars could possibly help out. New Jersey Transit has been restoring service on some of its lines, and what we were asking is that we find out from New Jersey Transit when our express trains are going to be restored on the Pascagoula Valley line. We've heard nothing from New Jersey Transit and would like to get an answer from them. We need to have the MTA work out a deal with New Jersey Transit so that MTA takes over control of the Suffern Station. That's important so that we can make the Suffern Station handicapped accessible. Right now it's not, and it looks like a derelict in many cases from the 19th century. Also, the Gateway project is moving ahead, and we'd like to make sure that the MTA is an active partner in the Gateway project, and this is very essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Pinheiro, followed by Murray Bowden.
Good morning on the Monday after my birthday. Here representing Passengers United. Thank you, Neil. Last night, the Long Island Railroad experienced a slow speed derailment. Matt Camper from Long Island and myself, we forward this information to Neil, Veronica, and some other folks that they could take a look about this incident that was only reported via email, not in the social media outlet of the Long Island Railroad. Second of all, I want to give feedback regarding the new feature that Metro North has. There's a couple of things that could be improved. Like, for instance, in the MNR.org doesn't show what model of train the commuter is going to get, if it's a M3A, a M7A, or an M8. They should be just like the design that the Long Island Railroad has. And I'm in support of the renewal of Atlantic ticket. It is very necessary that this option should be expanded because For me personally, it saves me time because I live 2 blocks away from Atlantic Terminal, Brooklyn. And for me to take 2 subway lines in comparison to Long Island Railroad from Brooklyn to Jamaica, you wait 1 hour versus 20 minutes. I prefer taking the 20 minutes, although I have to pay a little bit more. But we should consider lowering the fare of a landed ticket to at least $2.75 within the city limits. The CTA is doing the same thing within Metro. And the weekly ticket should be lowered to $45. And at least consider having the landed ticket extended to Penn late nights and weekends only to benefit those who travel to and from JFK Airport. So that's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Murray Bowden.
I will be commenting on the President of Metro North's report, and I will be commenting on the President of Long Island's report as soon as I hear them.
That concludes our public speakers.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you to our public speakers.
It does not include public speakers. I get to speak on the agenda items. The agenda items are 2 reports by the presidents. They have not been published. They have been published on other committees. I'm entitled to see something before I have to comment on it. I can't comment it on something I haven't seen yet. So my public speaking has not happened yet. I will speak after I hear the reports.
As I said, thank you to our public speakers. I, too, am interested in the return of the Pascack Valley Express line, so thank you for bringing that up. I'd like to make the committee aware that Commissioner Brown is joining us by phone, I believe. Are you there, Norman? I guess he's not. The minutes of the last meeting are in your book. Is there a motion to approve or any changes to the minutes? Second? Those in favor? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Are there any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes to the Metro North work plan.
And no changes to the Long Island Railroad work plan.
Thank you. In that case, may we have the Metro North President's report?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to be rather speedy this month. Just to acknowledge some highlights since last month's meeting, starting with our focus on safety. Earlier this month, we participated in International Level Crossing Awareness Day, also known as ILCAD, by reaching out to 2,000 drivers at 7 grade crossings in New York and Connecticut. This outreach effort was done in coordination with the MTA PD, thank you, Connecticut DOT, FRA, and Operation Lifesaver, and we thank all of them for their continued support on rail safety. A little bit about our performance over the course of the last month. On-time performance during the month of May remains strong at 94.2, which marks the 5th consecutive month that Metro North trains operated above goal. Year to date, our OTP stands at 95.4, which is 2.4% higher than last year. Unfortunately, west of Hudson service operated slightly below goal at 92.2, due primarily to our infrastructure work. I would like to take a moment to recognize 2 recent retirees who are not here today, but I'm going to recognize them anyway. The first is Kevin O'Connor, who was our Chief Transportation Officer. Kevin came to us after a distinguished career at both Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. We had him for 5 years, and we were extraordinarily fortunate for that. Kevin always strived to ensure that our workforce had what it needed to run safe, reliable service to the many thousands of riders we transport every day. And the second person I'd like to acknowledge is Mike Yeager, who is our Chief Mechanical Officer, who will be retiring at the end of the month. Mike's role has been to ensure that we have our train equipment properly maintained and ready for service each and every day. Our customers don't necessarily know the 2 of them, so on behalf of them, I would like to thank them both for their years of service and dedication and wish them the best in their retirement. Briefly, in terms of ridership, we have seen an increase across all 3 lines. Compared to 2018, we are up 2.4%. On the customer service front, we continue reaching out to our customers through our Connect With Us forums. We have one scheduled in Bridgeport tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 a.m. July 23rd, we will be at Woodlawn Station, and we're going to take the month of August off and be back at Mount Kisco on September 17th. I'm going to talk a little bit about Way Ahead for a second. We are making progress on our Way Ahead initiatives and improving the customer experiencing by advancing major station improvements at White Plains, which include new and attractive restrooms that just opened a couple weeks back and waiting areas. The next thing we'd like to discuss is the groundbreaking at the Village of Harrison for the Avalon Bay development. Jana was there representing MTA. This is a wonderful partnership with Metro North. It's a mixed-use development that will be the first of its kind in the railroad system. It's going to include a garage for riders and the public, a housing complex with 143 apartment units, including affordable units, 27,000 square feet of retail space, and 2 pedestrian plazas. The garage, once constructed, will increase commuter parking by at least 218 spaces, which is an 85% increase. These are the kind of partnerships that we're hoping to forge throughout our territory. It's a wonderful example of a public-private partnership, and we're very excited to be part of it. It's housed on a 3.28-acre site, on the south side of the station along Halstead Avenue. It intends to spark a downtown rebirth, serving as a catalyst for the revitalization of Harrison. This previously underutilized parcel of property presently contains a surface parking lot that is too small to meet our current demand. That's all I have. I'm going to turn the floor over to Tom for a little bit for some customer service highlights.
Good morning, Tom Mitchell. So this morning we're going to give an update on a few specific actions from our Station Ambassador Pilot Program. Recently at White Plains Station, our Ambassador Bob Pearson observed a man that appeared to be very jittery and nervous on the platform. He took further notice of the man as he had handcuffs and what appeared to be a law enforcement badge attached to his belt with no uniform. The man boarded the train with no incident, but Bob took note of the observation, and on the following day, a female customer approached Bob and was concerned as she felt she was being followed by a man at the station. She explained he rode next to her on the train the previous day and sat next to her and conversed with her, claiming he was a police officer and showing her some paraphernalia, including a knife. She noted that the man seemed to know her commuting schedule and displayed a journal with detailed info of other people that he claimed to be surveilling. Bob asked if this man was at the station, and she pointed him out, and which was the same man that Bob noticed the previous day. Apparently, the man observed Bob talking to the customer and became nervous and boarded the next train. Prior to him boarding, Bob was able to take a picture of the man and called the MTA PD with this info and texted the picture he had. The MTA PD boarded the train, questioned the individual, and subsequently led to an arrest for impersonating a police officer. The PD stated that the information and picture were invaluable in making that arrest. In a second story, a senior customer unfamiliar with traveling to the city encountered our station ambassador, Zerl Clark, at the Croton Harmon station. She wanted to travel to the city and go to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. It was her first time going there, and she felt very uncomfortable riding the train. Zerl not only provided with the information and assistance she needed, but contacted the ambassador, Audrey Johnson Gordon, at her destination station, which was Harlem 125th Street. Zerl provided Audrey a photo, so it was easy for her to identify when she arrived. Audrey met her, assisted her to a taxi to complete her journey to the hospital. The customer was very grateful, and this display is a perfect example of our ambassadors using teamwork to assist customers. I would also like to stress that these are not unique situations and happen daily. This is also exemplifies how the Station Ambassador Pilot, which is a Way Ahead initiative, is helping to provide a positive customer experience at our stations. Thank you.
May we have the Metro North Safety Report, please? Mr. Vanashek.
Yes, Madam Chair. Justin Vanashek, Vice President, System Safety, Metro North. The safety report can be found on page 43. Customer injuries continue to trend less than 1 injury per million customers and are down over 2.5% versus the previous 12 months. Employee lost time injuries are down 18% over the previous 12 months, and our community outreach program TRACS has reached over 30,000 individuals through April. And last week we held our 3rd annual Safety Excellence Award ceremony. The event recognized MNR employees and work groups who have gone above and beyond in ensuring the safety of our employees and our customers. And finally, we recently introduced a new safety campaign called Safety Focused. Remaining focused on safety is paramount, and this campaign helps to reinforce the importance. To further confirm this point, we changed our quarterly Safety Focused Day to an entire week each quarter now. Our first Safety Focused week took place the week of June 3rd. This additional time provides our managers and supervisors the opportunity to attend more safety-focused events with all of their employees. This concludes the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I just will make a remark that is a positive and rare thing one gets to do, which is to say, I am so happy we don't talk about safety the way we used to talk about it. I'm so happy, Justin, that you've been here the last few years to help drive safety into the culture. I'm thankful for your leadership, Kathy, because it is a serious change from when I joined this board 5 years ago, and that's all I talked about. And I droned on about being a safety officer when I was a helicopter pilot, and I droned on about the stats, and we've actually managed to drive them in the right direction, and thank you for your leadership in doing so. And I know with PTC's implementation by the end of next year, we will have a new level of awareness and establishment of safety, so thank you.
Those are well-deserved comments. The decrease in safety issues is very obvious, and we appreciate that. I also appreciate the Station Ambassador program, and I find that to be very helpful to many people who get confused on our tracks once in a while.
Just one comment on that, Susan. The other thing that I think is really remarkable about the program is how proud the station ambassadors are. I mean, they love their work,
Yes.
and they are so proud of what they do. It's really very inspiring.
If there are no other questions, I'll turn it over to Long Island Railroad and your report, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by acknowledging the incredible work of our staff in providing seamless service to Belmont Stakes on June 8th. We served over 27,000 riders that day by adding 50 extra trains on top of our normal weekend service, and for the day, our on-time performance was over 96%. We took lessons learned from last year, and we improved operations by dedicating Main Line 4 to the Belmont Stakes, eliminating the conflict between our normal weekend service and the Belmont Stakes service, allowing trains to enter and leave the station without needing to wait for normal Main Line trains to pass. And the hard work of our employees continues to yield positive results for our riders. In October, our on-time performance reached 94.8%. This is the railroad's highest May on-time performance since 2012. And there are a few other key milestones to take note of here as well. We exceeded 94% on-time performance on 9 of our 11 branches. The number of cancellations year-to-date has dropped by 56% compared to 2018. That's the lowest since 1996. And year-to-date, our average delay is 11.4 minutes, the lowest since 1996 as well. I do want to note, however, that we have faced some challenges in June. These service disruptions, some out of our control and some within our control, have affected our customers. And I want them to know that we're never satisfied with the status quo, that we're going to continue forging ahead. This last year, we have made substantial progress on delivering state of good repair work and modernizing our system, and we have no intention of slowing down. And this is on top of managing a continued growing ridership. In May, ridership increased by 3.4% compared to 2018. That's over 250,000 more riders choosing to get out of their cars and to take the railroad. And it demonstrates even more how critical our expansion projects and state of good repair work is. So to ensure that we can sustain improved on-time performance for the long term for this growing ridership, we will continue with a sense of urgency in planning and accomplishing our essential track program. We continue to accelerate critical work over the summer while providing 24/7 service. And in July, we have multiple programs, as you can see here on the screen, happening system-wide, including Amtrak State of Good Repair, mainline expansion work, and other critical track and signal improvements. This is an unprecedented amount of work that needs to be coordinated while still providing a robust service plan. And I'd like to thank our labor force for helping to get this work done, and thank our customers for their patience as we rebuild the system for future generations to come. Through this, we remain laser focused on improving customer experience. We've had over 190 Meet the Manager events. We've had over 98,000 users now for My LIRR, and Long Island Railroad Care has served over 1,800 requests. And I'm pleased to announce that we've decided to extend the Atlantic Field Ticket Study. We've seen a large number of riders switch their destination from Penn Station to Atlantic Terminal, helping to balance riders out across the western terminals. However, with changing travel patterns, there are a few morning peaks trains that are above capacity between Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal that we are carefully monitoring. Another challenge has been that some riders continue to use the Atlantic ticket to Penn Station. The ticket is invalid to Penn, and I want to note that we are doing what it takes to make sure that we message the use of the Atlantic ticket to our customers. This way, there's no confusion with regard to them and for our employees. It's a common goal of providing more mass transit opportunities to our public, and we're seeing positive results, and that's why we're extending the pilot for another year. To further support our needs, we're continuing to leverage our real estate assets and private partnerships. Our Long Island Railroad team and MTA Real Estate recently secured a new vendor, Hampton Coffee, to occupy the station house at our Riverhead station, and they will invest over $400,000 in renovations. This is a win-win for our customers, the Riverhead community, and for the Long Island Railroad. And our Long Island Railroad sponsorship program is also proving a success as well. Thanks to Laz Parking's investment at Ronkonkoma Station and the hard work of our station and engineering staff, the community now is enjoying a newly landscaped exterior. Over 200 new plants and trees were planted, giving the community and our customers a station they can enjoy and be proud of. So we've seen improvements every month since the latter half of 2018, and our customers have noticed it. But I've said from day one, we're far from being done. As I'm accountable for all that affects Long Island Railroad and our customers and our employees, we continue to hold others that we rely on accountable as well. Rolling stock is one key area that remains crucial to long-term service improvements. Kawasaki and the subs continue to troubleshoot issues identified during testing of the M9 fleet. While we are encouraged to see that over 75% of the issues identified have been fixed and no new issues have arisen during testing, Kawasaki has informed us, though, that the remaining fixes do need additional time to address properly. I'd like the committee to know that we are holding Kawasaki accountable, and until the cars are revenue ready, we will withhold payment of $1.4 million per car from Kawasaki. Further, liquidated damages of $500 per day per car will be accrued. So a safe and reliable fleet is paramount for our customers, our employees, and Kawasaki is fully aware that we will not allow fleet to enter revenue service until the car meets the contract requirements. Knowing that the car building challenges that exist across all railroads in North America and our own challenges that we're facing, that's the reason we made critical decisions last year to focus on maintenance and repairs of our existing fleet, including the M3s. With the hard work of our fleet managers and our maintenance of equipment labor workforce, I'm thankful that we've been able to keep our existing fleet running, continue to exceed our constant compliance goals, and mitigate short trains where we can. So we're controlling what we can control and taking measures to influence and mitigate those things that are not fully in our control. I'm confident that we are making the right decisions, and our actions are making a difference, and our performance metrics do demonstrate that. We're tackling issues every day with that sense of urgency that I've talked about and looking at new practices. We have a lot of important work underway, more to come, and that we're going to continue to modernize and improve our system. I want to again thank our riders for their patience and understanding, and our staff for their commitment. Thank you.
Kevin, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And thank you, Phil, and your team. Phil, I agree with your decision not to accept inadequate fleet of the M9s until they're ready. That would be terrible for our riders to bring on something that's not ready yet. And so I support your decision. But I have a problem with Kawasaki. Now, this sounds like Siemens all over again. Here we have this big multi-billion-dollar international company where deadlines and budgets don't seem to matter. And I think part of the problem is because there's no competition. And maybe budgets and deadlines don't matter, but they should. And when I was asked to come on this board 3 months ago, I was asked to, not accept the status quo and don't be afraid to shake things up. And I'm wondering, just like we threatened Siemens with, do we need to haul the CEO or the top folks at Kawasaki here and get the commitment to get this job done and deliver these trains for our riders here on time, because it's really not acceptable. And again, I think part of the problem is competition. You know, our economy over the last 20 years, all the new successful companies are the ones that are disrupting long-held business models of other major companies. And if I was a young entrepreneur out there, I would be coming up with a new company to compete with the sole vendors that we tend to utilize, because I think the appetite for change is in the air, at least with, I know, a lot of the new members of the board. So, Phil, your thoughts on getting Kawasaki to make the commitments and get us more comfortable with their work like we just did with Siemens?
Well, Commissioner, I agree 100% with what you've said. In fact, I've had those same conversations with Kawasaki executives with regards to their need to step up and fix these problems. And while I am seeing those problems being addressed, and as I mentioned, over the last few weeks of testing, we've not seen new issues arise, which is a positive step. I have made it clear to them that it's only a matter of time if they continue down this path that we will bring them in, and we will ask them to speak to the board members as well directly. That's why we've made the point to not continue, to withhold the payments of these fleet, and to leverage what we have in the contract to ensure that we get the reliable fleet. We've seen in the past when you get new cars and they're reliable, what they can do for service and for our customers. And the last thing I'm going to do is allow them to be put into service until they're ready. And until they're ready, they will not get payments.
Great, Phil. And let them know that you got board members. I think some of you share my feelings that we're upset and that budgets and deadlines mean something. Thank you.
Yes, Neil first, and then Veronica.
First, I want to endorse the statements of our Long Island Railroad Committee Chair. Mr. Law, I agree with you. While I've been here a little longer than you, I have the same desire to shake things up. I am the board member who requested, if demanded, that Siemens and Bombardier come to us. They've now come 3 different times. And as we'll get into in the PTC discussion, I'm schlepping out to Pittsburgh on a holiday week to demonstrate that deeds are better than words. So to endorse your comment, I'd like to suggest maybe, in fact, we pass a motion to send a letter to Kawasaki asking for their presence at our July board meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Veronica?
Phil, I wanted to thank you and the team for the Atlantic ticket extension of the pilot extension for another year. I think it's a good opportunity. I'm glad to see the ridership numbers that have been shared. I know the challenges of having customers that still want to travel to Penn, and I'm in favor of that option. I understand the limitations and the challenges with offering that now, but with the Omni system and our new modified payment system with the e-tickets, I think there's more opportunity moving forward. And I think the modification that is being considered for those customers who may be confused about still traveling into Penn, I think is worthwhile. So I just do want to shout out that decision to continue this pilot. I think it is a worthwhile opportunity for so many more of our customers, and we're seeing good ridership numbers.
Thank you. Yes, we agree. Options is the key to our customers, and that's why we're continuing to monitor it, and we're pleased that we're able to extend it.
Thank you. May we have your safety report, please, Lori?
Good morning. Lori Ebbeckhausen, Vice President Corporate Safety at the Long Island Railroad. Our safety report can be found on page 46 in your book, and we're reporting on our performance through the end of April. We decreased by 29% from 2.54 injuries per million customers to 1.81 injuries per million customers, our reportable customer injury rate. Last week, we engaged with close to 400 customers at Penn Station, which is our most challenging location for customer injuries. And I was pleased to see that Amtrak New Jersey Transit and New York City Transit continue to support that collaboration with us. We have seen, since we started this event in 2015, a 38% decrease in injuries at Penn Station. So we like to believe that a lot of that has to do with that concentrated and collaborative effort with our partners in Penn to engage with our customers. Another effort of collaboration is with the MTA Police and Chief Monahan's forces. TRACS program reached over 34,000 participants through the end of April. You will note that our broken gates are up, and I know we've had conversations about this in the past, and we found that with the construction at Third Track and the changes in the traffic patterns there, that we've really focused a lot of effort and done a lot of Operation Lifesavers, and continue to focus our efforts with PTSB, FRA, MTA Police. So between the enforcement and education and the outreach efforts, we're really looking to help those communities work through those challenges. In addition, we experienced a 17% decrease in our average reportable employee lost time injury rate. Our rate decreased from 3.44 injuries per 200,000 hours to 2.84 injuries per 200,000 hours. And soft tissue injuries continue to be the biggest challenge for us here at the Long Island Railroad. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Yes, Veronica.
Lori, I know this question has been asked sometime before. I don't remember the answer. It's the railroad's responsibility to repair the broken gates, fiscal responsibility. But was there an effort to collect reimbursement through the insurance companies?
Yes, when we can, we definitely reach out and try to get the reimbursements for any of the incidents that we find that the drivers or the pedestrians' behaviors contributed to the event.
And are we mostly successful at that? Is the recovery rate a good recovery rate, a fair recovery rate?
I will defer to my colleague in legal, Mr. Hoffer, about our efforts in our recovery.
We do fairly well. We collect, I don't have the numbers with me, but I know it's several $1 million a year. It all depends on the nature of the incident and, candidly, what kind of insurance coverage the driver has. Sometimes the drivers have low coverage. Occasionally they are driving illegally without coverage, and then we have a problem. So it varies, but we do our best both with broken gates and other incidents where infrastructure of the railroad is damaged. Our claims people investigate, collect evidence, and we do proceed against the driver and the driver's insurance carrier, which is the real party in interest.
Thank you. That's an excellent report, Laurie. To continue good news, may we have the police report, please, Chief?
Good morning. Well, I'm pleased to report year-to-date, crimes in all the railroad are down by 28%. That's 79 crimes, felony crimes, versus 109. For the month of May, we experienced 16 versus 17 crimes, down by 1. For the Long Island Railroad, year-to-date in the Long Island Railroad, crime is down by 24%, 32 versus 42 crimes. For the month of May, we experienced 7 crimes versus 8, down by 1. And for Metro North year-to-date is down 31%. That's 43 crimes versus 62. For the month of May, we did experience an increase by 2, 8 versus 6. And the monthly breakdown for both the railroads of crimes. In Long Island Railroad, we experienced 1 robbery, 2 felony assaults, 4 grand larcenies. In Metro North, we experienced 1 robbery and 7 grand larcenies. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we move to capital construction? Kevin?
Yes, Chief, I have one question. When the Nassau and Suffolk County Police reveal their stats on crime rates going down too, do they include our MTA numbers, or are ours extrapolated from their numbers?
Their overall numbers do include railroad crimes, and we speak on a regular basis. We are members of the Nassau and Suffolk County Chiefs of Police Association, so there's a lot of dialogue back and forth.
Thank you. I understand that your presentation will be in the procurements? Good. Moving along then, we do have an action item. Would you like to present that, Kathy?
Sure. Approval is needed by the board for Metro North to increase the subsidy on our bus shuttle unit ticket with Westchester County for connecting bus service to and from certain Metro North stations. Please note that this increase will not be effective until the start of ticket sales for the month of August and not July. The printed agenda book has a mistake in it. It says July. A corrected staff summary should be at your desks and is on director's desk. So it's the effective date for August, not July. The increase of $2 per monthly unit ticket is consistent with similar increases being implemented for other unit ticket arrangements. I think we just need a motion to approve.
May I have a motion to approve? Hello? Second, thank you. Is there any discussion? Yes.
I just don't understand the why of this. Can you just, what's prompting it and why are we doing that? I see it's consistent with others, but I just, for purposes of explanation, can you just give us a little bit more than?
Sure. I may need some tag team with Mr. Schiffer on this, but essentially we've had for some time an agreement with Westchester County to subsidize certain of these connecting shuttle services. So this is the B line, this is certain employee shuttles, and what happens is when we have a fare increase on the transit side, essentially we need to split the difference, right? So we split with Westchester County what that increase is. So everything goes up by the amount of the fare increase. So we do this conforming change every time we have a fare increase. This has been an arrangement that goes back many years with Westchester County.
And I might add that this was precipitated when the New York City transit fares, the MetroCard fare went up. Then Westchester County voted to match their fare. And so what this does is we sell a unit ticket, which is a discounted ticket that combines rail and bus fares. We pay, the customer pays a portion, the county pays a portion, and we pay a portion. And so our portion is this, which amounts to about $10,000 a year.
Sorry, what's the cost of the MTA? Oh, okay.
$10,550.
It's fair. Yeah, it's fairly minimal.
We do.
I think it's because it's
It's a fare increase. Board has authority over fares.
and again, the fare to the customer is $2 per month increase on a monthly ticket.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We have one joint information item. That is the PTC implementation. The report, the normal report, is in the book. Debbie Chin is here to answer any questions you have. And Neil, I would also like you, as chair of the working group, to summarize the actions that are coming up in the next week on the part of the board.
Yeah, thank you. I think Kevin actually set the tone properly that we can no longer, as an organization, accept poor service, and the amount of money and time this organization spends to support global corporations and not receiving the same level of service and care in return has ended. The governor's made that clear. We as a board have made it clear. We have called on the carpet now 3 different times, and we'll have for a 4th time a visit by the CEO of Siemens to this very office here in the not-too-distant future. I believe that's 2nd of July, and we'll have a private conversation with Mr. Kaiser then. But we thought we'd take, and I would assure the folks at Bombardier and Siemens that it was not just a rhetorical flourish that when I stated in the last board meeting that we would go examine the mysteries of Pittsburgh. We are going to Pittsburgh. We are going for a reason. We're going to demonstrate our care. We're going to see with our own eyes the level of effort being brought to solve this problem. We're there to ask with our own voices, for those doing the work of PTC on the ground, what issues they're being faced with. We're going to validate with our own ears the progress we're hearing, but most importantly, we're going to be feet on the ground to demonstrate this board will not tolerate any more words over deeds. And we're going on a holiday week to ensure, and I believe myself and Rhonda and Randy Glucksman are attending, and anyone else who would like to go from the board is more than welcome to join us to examine Pittsburgh. It's a lovely city, home to wonderful things like Carnegie Mellon and Andy Warhol and Steele and I guess, the MTA Board, at least on July 1st. So we're going, and I'm being a little funny, but we're going because Bombardier and Siemens must know we care and we expect results. And I am sure, Kevin, if you and I would like to go to Japan at some point, I'll go with you. And if not, we can just go up to Yonkers to Kawasaki's local operations, which we can actually get there by rail. So we're going, and I appreciate Kathy and Phil and Ronnie Hakem and their support, particularly as we try to elevate the intensity by which we bring to our relationship with vendors, especially those doing the most critical pieces of work.
Thank you, Neil. I reinforce the comments made by you and by Kevin. That said, I am somewhat heartened to see that we appear to be making progress with Siemens and Bombardier in that leadership has stepped up, management changes have been made, and we seem to be getting back on track, but that remains to be seen, hopefully by next month. Thank you. Metro North information items?
Sure. We have the Diversity EEO report for the first quarter of 2019. It's in the agenda and the book, and it will be presented at the Diversity Committee meeting this afternoon. We also have a schedule change, and Mike Schiffer will provide the highlights for the schedule change.
Good morning again. Our new East of Hudson schedules are effective Sunday, June 30th. On the Hudson line, restoration of full service to and from Poughkeepsie will be part of the schedule change, just in time for the day trippers who use the Hudson line each summer weekend. Minor schedule changes of 1 to 3 minutes will account for the movement of the track work that is going on along the line. And I should preface this by saying the second half of our summer schedule, which is going into effect on June 30th, is largely designed to accommodate the extensive track work that is going on throughout our system. On the Harlem line, the most notable level of track work will be in the Bronx, and that will affect not only the Harlem line but also New Haven line trains. It will be a significant reduction in capacity because one of the 4 tracks will be out of service. A result of that is weekday stops at Melrose and Tremont will be suspended because of the continuous construction and throughput. Alternative busing will be provided during this period to and from Fordham Road. However, they should be able to maintain regular rail service on the weekends because there is less of a volume of trains moving through that area. Minor schedule changes of 1 to 3 minutes will account for track work also on other parts of the Harlem line. On the New Haven line, again, we'll have similar schedule adjustments along the line to account for the shifting of infrastructure work that's going underway. And beyond that, from June 29th to July 7th, a special schedule will be in place on the New Haven line to support the Atlantic Street Bridge project that's undertaken by the Connecticut Department of Transportation in Stamford. Basically, that project, that work, will reduce 5 tracks that move through Stamford Station to 2. So that's a reduction of 60% of the track capacity. Connecticut DOT chose this particular week because of the July 4th holiday, and they are aware, and we're aware, that ridership decreases 25 to 30% during that week because of vacations. So that's why they chose that week to do that extensive work. That extensive work results in basically a rewritten schedule that substantially reduces the number of trains, particularly those trains that are traveling to and from stations east of Stamford. The New York State stations will largely be unaffected by that work because they don't traverse that same location. In addition to that, the New Canaan branch will be served by a bus shuttle during that entire 9-day period. And the Danbury and Waterbury branches will have no service frequency changes. That concludes the report on the upcoming schedule change.
I have a quick comment on the Melrose and Tremont modifications. So one of the best things we did was increase service for those stations, and I see a good deal of ridership and use midday. will the frequency be significantly different on the buses? Because I'm concerned about losing that ridership that we've gained over these next few months.
The buses will maintain their frequency. Oh,
And one of the other things to speak to with that is that we had talked some time ago now about potentially increasing service once we completed this work as well as some other work in the area. So once this work is done over the summer, that will provide the opportunity to actually increase service to those stations. So that's another advantage to getting this work completed and in the books.
I think you have one more item.
So we also have a lease agreement for the Rise Station building. This is going to be presented as a real estate item in finance. It's a lease with Winfield Street for more than 2,600 square feet of space in the Rise Station building for the operation of a cafe and lounge. With $290,000 worth of improvement costs to the building, the agreement will enhance the overall station environment and the customer experience. So we're very happy to see this happen at the Rise Station, and you'll be hearing more about this at Finance this afternoon. And then I guess the final information item is something to turn over to Board Member Zuckerman, who has a discussion he would like to lead on potential future capital investments.
Yes, it's some months ago, perhaps as long ago as January, Neil was charged with evaluating Metro North, east and west of Hudson for needed capital improvements. Would you report on east of Hudson? And I'd also like to say that it's good to see money being leveraged into the system. Very happy about that.
I feel like I've already used my time today, so I apologize to my fellow board members for...
Just be quick.
Well, I'm not sure I can do that, Madam Chair, but I will do my best to be accurate. So before we focus on capital, I do want to acknowledge two operating issues that I do think take precedent over this. The most important activity facing Metro North, I wouldn't say it necessarily for Long Island Railroad, but maybe it is positive train control, and I believe that's where the railroad should place its attention. I also believe the second operating issue that we face is a much more damning existential one, which is the $1 billion shortfall operating deficit we will encounter as an organization in the year 2022. That is not very far away. I've said many times to me that is the second biggest issue we face. So I say those two things knowing that we're going to have a capital discussion. So with that in mind, I subscribe to the words of Tom Prendergast, who was 2 chairs ago, when he used to say the MTA is a single system. It needs to be operated as a system. Its capital needs need to be thought as one system, and we must make decisions as one system. But we're in a conversation about Metro North, and I represent riders from a small but vibrant county within this system, a county which has been accepting the deference of capital spend to other parts of the system for quite some time. In the last capital plan, we saw that Long Island Railroad received 238% more in funding than Metro North, and New York City Transit received 528% more than Metro North. We accept that Long Island Railroad is more complex and more in need than Metro North. And yet, as we also need to respect the needs of riders and the rest of the system, I'll submit these concepts. The riders of Putnam County, and I'll put Dutchess in that as well, pay the highest rates across the entire MTA system on a monthly basis. We have needs, and in my opinion, we have not seen a change in our stations or our service in quite some time. We need to see improvements that actually change the quality of our service, not just back-of-house improvements. The largest improvement in the last capital plan was the Croton Shops, which only employees saw, not riders. As such, from my constituents' perspective, we have the following needs. And I'll start at the micro and go to the macro. We have 5 day-to-day stations in Putnam County. 3 of the 5 of them are in need of upgrading. Southeast Station requires a walk of up to half a mile to get to the train tracks. It is a station which is an important hub. Half the cars you see are from Connecticut in the parking lot, and the station is in need. I'll ask to go to the video next, sir. I'm sorry. Okay, so I commute out of the Garrison Station, so this may be self-serving. But the Garrison Station has crumbling steps, a leaky roof, cracked concrete everywhere, and is becoming an actual safety hazard both in winter and summer. Now this, I believe in props. This is a piece of rebar I picked up on Friday morning. It's just sitting around on the floor. I know it looks like a wand. But this scary piece of equipment here you keep flipping through while I pick up my rebar.
It does look like Harry Potter wand.
It does. although Glenn thought it was from frozen. This was just sitting around on the ground, and this is not the only piece. Thank you, ma'am. And if you follow the pictures, and not my prop, well, those are the flies, but I thought this was the particularly scariest one coming up here. So the Garrison Station's in need of repair and upgrade. And the Brewster Station, in our opinion, is not a safe environment because the mixing of pedestrian, car, and train traffic. So that's the first one, is station upgrades. The second is the surging popularity of the Hudson Line, which had the greatest growth among our three lines, has been long ignored by its two bigger sisters, needs two major upgrades. The first is an electrification of the line between Croton, Hudson, and Poughkeepsie. And the second is the exploration of access to Penn Station straight down the Hudson Line. The former is just right for the environment. It is not reasonable to believe that we do not need electrification this one stretch given the massive increase in Beacon and North. And the second, it just makes sense. We must start to increase service in our region as it grows in population. The Hudson Line is a very popular one, and we've done a nice job, an incredibly necessary job, thanks to Freddie Ferrer and many others, of getting access to Penn Station through the Bronx in a place that's desperately needing service. But it also makes little sense that if you live on the Hudson Line that you have to go all the way through the Bronx and into Grand Central to get to Penn Station. The last one I'll mention is a cross Metro North problem that is a century in the making, the 125th Street Viaduct. It is simply old and in need of repair. So that's an important piece. But I'd like to challenge us in the same way Governor Cuomo challenged us on the L train. We have got to find a way to increase throughput, to increase capacity to get into Grand Central. The slowing down of trains throughout that area is obviously one of capacity. And so the question is how we can address the bottlenecks that come in the Bronx and through the viaduct. And I think this would be an interesting experiment to see what we can do to increase train volume. I submit this list of thoughtful and needed projects for your consideration. I know we have a finite amount of money to deploy. I understand that. We all do. We want to, though, ensure greater equity across the system. And as I've said many times, for those from Dutchess County, Putnam County, and frankly from Suffolk County, those who pay the most should not get the least. Those who pay the most should not get the least. Thank you.
Speaking for west of Hudson, as Neil has pointed out, the most distant stations pay the most for a ticket. The Port Jervis station is 95 miles from its terminus in Hoboken. Obviously, that costs money for people. Yet it is the least served part of the MTA family. It's least served because the infrastructure is constraining. There is no midpoint yard, and very few railroads try to operate over 65 miles with no yard. And it's a single track for a fair amount of that distance. So, as always, west of Hudson is looking for a midpoint yard and passing sidings. Thank you. Any questions? Or any additions? In that case, we're on to Long Island information items.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the Diversity EO report for Long Island Railroad first quarter 2019 is in the book. Our track work and July timetable program associated with it is also in the book. I did talk about some of that during my earlier comments with regards to state of good repair work, with regards to continued mainline expansion project, and other maintenance work that's ongoing, as well as the lease agreement for Riverhead Station is also in the book and will be discussed later at Finance.
Any questions? In that case, we're on to procurements. And I see that Metro North and Long Island Railroad are very frugal. They have none this month. We will hear from Jano for capital construction.
The profligate capital construction will present now. I actually have a presentation about the first procurement, which is for the project management consultant for the Penn East End Gateway. That's the entry at 7th Avenue that we're doing, along with the improvement of the Long Island Railroad concourse of Penn Station. let me just remind you that this project was moved through the board and got approval a few short months ago, but we're really already on the verge of starting construction in earnest with the Long Island Railroad's cooperation and actually a very effective communications initiative. We've already altered some of the ticket windows and some of the information screens, and I just want to compliment the railroad for helping to make sure that the passengers understood that this is essential to the beginning of a project that's really going to change the experience of Penn Station for them. Penn Station, the busiest passenger railroad facility in the United States. Just reminding you of some of the key things. We executed an MOU with Vornado. Remember, Vornado owns or operates the retail on the north side of the Long Island Railroad concourse there, and they've agreed to push back all of that retail by 27 feet in order to widen the concourse from 30 to close to 60 feet. And they're going to be, because it made sense to have one builder, one developer doing those projects, both renovating the retail and also redoing the concourse itself. They're going to be doing that work, but also first constructing that new 33rd Street entrance and then moving to renovating the concourses in the back of house. And eventually they'll be the operators of all the retail space. So in June, we executed the Phase 1 development agreement. That applies. The Phase 1 is the actual entrance with the 3 escalators and stairway popping down right in the middle of 33rd and 7th Avenue, an access point into Penn Station, both for subway and Long Island Railroad customers that we've never had before. It was always required to follow that circuitous route through Amtrak land, but now we're going to start that right away. The pricing is consistent with our own cost estimates, and because we are somewhat constrained in having to use the same general contractor as Vornado's using, because we're hiring them, we require that all the trade subcontracts be competitively bid, that we have some assurance of competition, and we created an incentive structure which I like to use for cost savings to be shared. So if they do better than the estimate that is reflected in the bid so far, the savings are shared. And we applied to that subcontractor process a 36% MWBE SBDOV, small and disadvantaged business veterans organization goal. So now we're asking your approval for the hiring of the new project management consultant. We competitively bid that. The pricing is within our cost estimate, and we negotiated the ultimate deal with WSP. It's actually a new affiliate of WSP that many of you know, the Lewis Berger entity, which has a strong project management component, and they are being absorbed into WSP, so they're the ones who are joining us for this project. And we reduced the fee and created, again, a success incentive with a disincentive for lateness. So I'm not going to go over this in great detail because I think it was in your materials, but Phase 1 is, again, the entrance itself. That's got to be done by the time the Moynihan station opens in the end of 2020. So this is a major, it's a major project, and we're dropping a new stair and escalator package in the middle of the busiest part of Phil's train terminal and Andy Byford's subway operation, and we're doing it basically in a year and a half. So that's a major undertaking. The rest of the construction, the completion of the concourse itself and the widening will be done in 2022. Just a little shot that shows you where that new entrance is going to sit. It's cheek by jowl with the Vornado property. We had to negotiate some easements because we're actually impinging on them by a few feet. But it's all worked out. The key in location was so that it could land appropriately on the platforms for structural reasons. That's the way it's going to look as you look west on 33rd Street. Again, for the first time, a very visible entrance right into the Long Island Railroad and subway concourse that all of our customers use. And we hope that design, which we're pretty excited about, is going to be a place like a little bit like the Grand Central Clock in its own way, a place that people will think about meeting and use as a landmark in New York. I always show that shot. I think that sort of shows the elegance and how it's designed to relate to the new design of the adjacent Vornado 2 Penn Plaza. We're in the middle of Midtown, or you want something that fits into the streetscape, and I think that it will. You've got 3 escalators and a stairway coming up to grade. Again, we're looking west with that enclosure, the glass enclosed enclosure supported by a steel cable structure. And this just gives you some of the schematics of the design, where we're eliminating already right now, we're closing down the Duane Reade. Some of that retail on the concourse is going to be closed very quickly because we have to begin work in order to maintain schedule. I know you all want that. You see where the entrance sits right in the middle of the concourse, and that is going to impose some complex logistics that require a close collaboration with our Long Island Railroad colleagues. Gives you a sense of what the entry hall is going to look like when it's completed, the size of the opening. And this is something that's sort of not properly understood because it's such a crowded and narrow place right now. But when we widen it, it will be 23,000 feet. That whole space will be 23,000 feet in size, not including the concourses where the gates are that come off of it. And that's not, that's in proportion to the 30,000 feet of Moynihan's train station and the 33,000 feet, I think it is, of the main hall of Grand Central. So it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be a very substantial space. And together with Moynihan across the street, part of the same complex, I think will start to create a space that New Yorkers and our railroad riders and subway riders can be proud of. So that's the view looking up at the entry that's going to be dropped down. You see on the right the ticket windows, which are going to be moved back in order to create, again, enough width, along with the widening of the concourse to the left to keep all the circulation. We've done a ton of passenger circulation studies to optimize this, to make sure we're doing the right thing for passenger circulation. And the money shot, as they say, is that when you come up the escalators, you will have a direct view to the Empire State Building. And I think that is just very special. When I showed this to a couple people, of course, they asked, like, what are the development sites that are in the way that are going to block it? But we've actually studied it, and there's only one site that could conceivably block the view. But in the meantime, that's a heck of a way to enter New York, restoring a little bit of the spirit of the entry of the old Penn Station. So with that, we're asking for your approval for this project management consultant agreement that we have bid, got 3 bidders on, and negotiated to a conclusion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jano. The photos are indeed exciting. Can't wait until they're done. I noticed last week when the state legislature wrapped up their session, there was a significant, close to $500 million allocated for, I thought it was the Penn Station entrance. Is that going towards this project, or is that for something else? And is that in addition to MTA capital monies, or is it just a supplement, or is it a big chunk of the cost?
This project was already funded with a commitment from the state government that was outside the MTA's capital program. It was an additional commitment of state funds outside the existing capital program. I believe that action just supported that prior commitment by the state. I know. But it's for the project.
Any other questions? It does look super.
We'll be thrilled to accommodate Metro North riders as well in a couple of years.
I'm glad to hear that. I'll look forward to coming in that way. Yes.
And Madam Chairwoman, I just have just a generic comment. If staff and maybe could do this in the future, I looked in the book, and so I knew who the selection was, but I forgot. If we could put the name of the company on the agenda that we're voting on, just to belts and suspenders to make sure none of us have a conflict. I don't have any particular conflict with this one, but just to make sure that we're seeing in writing the name of the company that we're voting on. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Not only for this committee, but for all.
Thank you.
Anything else? In that case, we have monthly reports.
I have one other item, which is there's a request for a. Yep.
Motion? Second? Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Now,
I have a second item, which is a change order for one of the contracts we have in the East Side Access Herald interlocking work. Skanska was hired I believe, about 6 months ago after competition to do the last remaining major work in the Herald interlocking portion of East Side Access, the so-called BC tunnel approach to the tunnels that go to Grand Central. In the meantime, and this is a success story, we have been working, in the last year and a half very intensely with Amtrak, with the railroad, with other projects to create a regional schedule that was truly coordinated. Before, it was you requested an outage and Amtrak treated it like a black box. It was denied, it was accepted, it could be canceled. But through this regional scheduling process, we have created a lot of predictability and a much better collaboration with Amtrak. It has, although there's a lot of work going on, it has improved the situation, notwithstanding some of the impacts. It's improved it significantly. In the course of this work, we have identified an opportunity to get a piece of work that had been delayed and that was not going to be able to be done until after East Side Access opens, the so-called eastbound reroute, which is a track that will allow Amtrak trains to get out of the way of Long Island Railroad and ultimately Metro North trains. Work that we have a federal grant for, but which had been delayed in effect because of Amtrak's inability to support the work, to provide the force account and especially the electric traction power expertise for us to perform the work that we were paying for, but was on their behalf. We subsequently have identified an opportunity to start that work because there's a window in the regional schedule for Herald interlocking. And so we are asking to add the beginning of that work to Skanska's contract, and that is the purpose of this procurement. If we are able, and I'm asking for the approval subject to my ability to negotiate an agreement with Amtrak for them to participate economically with us in getting this work done, because it is outstanding work of a couple of $100 million. If we're able to get this work done timely, it will help us when the East River tunnels have to be closed down to do the renovations that they're slated for. So there is an incentive for us to get it done, for Amtrak to participate, and I'm asking for the board's approval for adding this work to Skanska's contract because they are working in the relevant area.
is there a motion and a second? I have to hand it to your leadership, Phil, Kathy, and the leadership here at headquarters. Having that regional schedule has made a huge difference, not only on this project, but on many things. And it's very much appreciated. It's also good to see railroads getting along.
I just may delay one moment. Last week, I attended my first meeting of the Northeast Carter Commission as the state's designee. The governor appointed me a couple weeks ago. And the schedule process that we've developed here is being treated as a model for some of the other regions. And although we have tremendous difficulties with Amtrak and huge issues to resolve and a lot of fights in this one area, I think we're setting a positive standard.
Very glad to hear that. Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other commentary? Yes, Neil?
So this is a federal grant, you said. Is it 100% federal coverage? Half? What's the federal portion of it, and what's the status of that?
The federal money from the Federal Railroad Administration supported this whole project called Regional Investments, which is not technically part of East Side Access, but this is kind of a parallel set of projects, 2 reroute tracks, a loop track, and some other work. And we're in the middle of it. We've accepted the federal money. We've spent some of our own money and some of the federal money, but we kind of stopped the work because of the difficulty getting Amtrak support and because of the need to get East Side Access into revenue service first. So I'd say that this money is going to be partly federal supported and partly ours. It's a relatively small amount of money. The big money for this work is going to come only if I work out a deal with Amtrak, and I'll bring it to the board if and when.
Any other questions? Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we're on to the monthly reports.
So for Metro North, the monthly reports, and actually for both railroads, the monthly reports on operations, performance metrics, finance, ridership, and the capital program are included in the committee's agenda, and we're both available to answer any questions you might have on those reports.
Questions on the reports. Veronica first, followed by Neil.
Just a comment on the EEO and diversity report. So in February, when they were last presented, I had asked in each of the agency committees that we see a historical analysis over a period of time, and that wasn't included in this one. And I think there's an opportunity in September to revisit that. And I just want to highlight that for the EEO complaints, we're seeing a larger share comprised of race complaints. In fact, the last reporting in February was at 38%, and it's grown to 48%. So I'd love to discuss with our new chair of the diversity committee and then with the agency presidents, how can we better understand what's happening here? And then again, how can we arrive at this historical analysis over time? Because as we know, this is looking at a year's worth of time, and we're getting these reports quarterly, but it would be helpful to see over X period of time, longer than a year, maybe that's 5 years, maybe that's 10 years, and working together to figure out what that appropriate time frame would be, and then presenting it in September.
Sure, absolutely. I'm very open to that, of course.
Thank you.
I have a solemn topic on page, I guess it's 144. We've talked about this periodically, and I realize public conversation, the topic I'm about to raise, is one that we have to be gentle with. The trespassing seems to yet again be rearing its head. And we are not tracking it, at least we're not publicly tracking it in our board books as to how it's happening and what frequency and what are the triggers. But I was surprised because I typically think of this as trespassing, and the unfortunate frequent reason why for the trespassing is happening more in the fall and winter months, given emotional situations and such. And we, again, have talked about it. I'm happy to do it in an executive session because of fear of issues related to it. I'm using a careful and couch language, but I am concerned. I have had press reach out to me on occasion in the last few months asking about protections along the right-of-way. I have stated, and I believe that it's cost prohibitive to do that everywhere, but seeing these, again, anecdotes, though, of trespassing is concerning to me, and I know it is to all of us, and it's certainly one, whether it's a police issue or a mental health issue or simply just a awareness issue. I would like us to talk about it some more because it's troubling. And I don't have more specific of an action or request than that, but I would like to ask you, while it is not the most pressing issue we face, it is a persistent issue.
I think it is a pressing issue. I mean, obviously, it's not an issue that's unique to Metro North or to Long Island Railroad. Unfortunately, it's an industry-wide phenomenon, but it's always very, very disturbing when these kinds of things happen. And they don't just happen along the right-of-way. They happen in the station environment, which makes it very difficult to guard against. Now, Justin, representing the Safety Department, has done a lot of good work with respect to interface with the suicide prevention community, and we'd be happy to give the committees a briefing in terms of some of the work that both railroads have done with respect to trying to reduce these very unfortunate incidents.
I think that's a good thing to schedule in one of our safety briefings. Anything else?
Just one last thing. Chairman Foy had asked us to report on a monthly basis with respect to our operating deficit. Based on results through the end of May, Metro North has generated $422 million in revenue and spent $643 million, which results in a net operating loss of $220 million. Lower than expected revenues, mainly reimbursable project receipts, are more than offset, however, by lower than expected expenditures, and the net operating loss through May is lower than what was assumed in the adopted budget.
And for Long Island Railroad, we generated $506 million in revenue and spent $806 million, resulting in a net operating loss of $300 million. And same with Metro North, due to higher than expected revenues and lower than expected expenditures. This net operating loss through May is lower than what was assumed in the adopted budget.
Any questions?
Madam,
Yes.
Not a question, but a comment and maybe, again, a suggestion for going forward in the future, and not to create more work for you, but just for the benefit of all of us. Again, a week or less before meetings, we're sent 600 to 800 pages of reports, depending upon how many committees we sit on. And when you're going through your reports, if you could just highlight like any major red flag issues that you want to make sure we're certain to be aware of. So maybe the issue doesn't come up a month later and then somebody says, well, it was on page 144 of the 200-page report. And so anything of major significance that you want to get on our radar screen, if you could just highlight when we do this section of the reports in the future meetings.
Any additional comments? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Those in favor? I'm sure no one's opposed.